Hey everybody, it's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, July 5th, 2020. Let's talk about the couple of the week, the two names on everybody's lips, Sharon Case and Marc Grossman. Did you guys know that they are a real life couple now? Sharon is happening in real life. I had no idea. This has been going on a little while and I had no idea. I guess I assumed that Sharon Case is married? I don't know. You know me, I decidedly never know very much at all about the actors' personal lives. You know how I like to keep my fantasy intact. But this one is just too hard to ignore. Juicy scandal, right? It sounds like they met on the set. And the sparks just flew. It makes total sense to me now as to why Y&R all of a sudden out of nowhere took that sharp turn into a Chatham reunion. Y&R must have seen that there was a little something going on between the actors there and they wanted to play on it. But I think that the majority of fans at the time, not everyone, not all of the fans, but I think the majority of fans weren't having the Chatham reunion, and I was one of them. It's not that Sharon and Adam weren't hot together. It's just that we were told that it was Adam and Chelsea forever. And then one day Y&R just pulled a switcheroo and said, no, it's Adam and Sharon forever. And in fact, it was Sharon all along, which this writing team loves to do. I mean, Adam and Sharon hadn't really even interacted that much in the past decade. And all of a sudden, Y&R was trying to whip up this forever romance. And it just wasn't working for me anyway. But, I mean, frankly, I feel bad now that I was objecting to the sharp change. I didn't know then that I was robbing Sharon and Marc of excuses and opportunities to make out with each other on screen. I'm so sorry. I loved the episode where Nicholas proposed to Sharon at the pool party. No, wait, that didn't happen. It was Paul. Paul was proposing to Chris at the stylishly decorated 90s upscale restaurant in 1994. Okay, I have to say it. I feel like I was deceived by the episode description for the Monday show. It said Paul pulls out all the stops to propose to Christine. What stops did Paul pull out? Exactly. All he did was slip an engagement ring onto her finger, all stealth-like, and then he totally backed off. Like the gentleman that he is. He told her, no, I don't want you to feel pressured. I'm just going to slip this ring on your finger and you think about it. And then they went dancing. That is hardly stops being pulled out, let alone all the stops. Christine didn't even hardly say a word the entire episode. She was apparently too moved to speak. Well, if she was too moved to speak and she didn't say no, then what was she waiting for? I was dying the entire episode for her to just say yes. Needless Christina was explaining to Ryan in a later episode, I want to say it was the wedding episode, she was telling Ryan that Christine was feeling on her wedding day to Paul that she had failed in her marriage to Danny, and that made her feel like she was a failure somehow as a woman. I guess I can't relate to that specifically, but I do know that Christine's Hawaiian wedding to Danny that we saw 2 weeks ago happened just 4 years prior to her wedding to Paul. I mean, I guess in soap opera time that is a long time, but in reality, your first marriage only lasts 4 years. I think that would make you doubt yourself. Christine had been all in on her relationship with Danny. Christine thought that this was going to be forever. So it does make sense that she was hesitant to get into another marriage again so soon after. But I also still, to this day, wonder if what Christine was really thinking as Paul was proposing to her was that she's still in love with Danny. But I think that maybe she was just too afraid that Danny would hurt her again, and that's why they never reunited. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I was watching in 1994, and although I don't remember Paul's proposal episode specifically, I do remember always having the feeling that Chris was in love with Danny even as she was getting involved with Paul, and vice versa. I got the feeling that Danny loved Chris, Chris loved Danny, and it was only because of Phyllis's lies and Phyllis's manipulations, tricking Danny into thinking he was the father of her baby, every stunt that she pulled to keep Chris and Danny apart. That's the only reason that they were apart. They never stopped loving each other. I think they still love each other. And if it weren't for Phyllis, I always got the feeling that Chris and Danny would still be together. And I'm not trying to throw a cold bucket of water on Paul and Christine week by any means, because I really like Paul and Christine, and in fact, I enjoyed the nuance of their chemistry together even more than I thought I was going to this week. But I also can't ignore the fact that in those early days of Paul and Chris, I always got the feeling that Paul was Christine's second choice. Like that Danny was her burning love, and that maybe Paul was someone who she loved, but was also the safer choice. Oh no, I hope that Nick doesn't decide to go back to his Swiss boarding school. Not now that he is a 90s hunk. I wonder if Nicholas ever ran into Dina in Switzerland. Like during the years that Dina was in the Swiss sanitarium. No, wait, she was never in the Swiss sanitarium. It's all a lie. Yeah, going back and looking at it now, Doris was right. Doris was right all along to always have that look of suspicion on her face. Sharon was a man-eater. Even then. I mean, from the beginning, Sharon was a man-eater. Then and now. I mean, looking at Sharon, just young Sharon, knowing that she had poor, doofy, rich, sex-driven Nicholas eating out of the palm of her hand, that poor kid never stood a chance. Sharon had that twinkle in her eye and a rich kid on the line. On the phone line. that is. Nick and Sharon were pretty much always hanging out on the phone. I think we've demonstrated by watching these classic episodes, but that's so how it was. Today, the kids are always texting, and we see that reflected in the show. Everybody's always texting each other. But in the 90s, it was hanging on the phone for hours. Uncomfortably even, because you're stuck to the cord. You can't go anywhere. Yeah. Sometimes you're hanging on the phone for hours on end, hanging out there in your bed, in your tidy whities, like Nick was. Did anybody see that? Please tell me that everybody saw and appreciated that. Nick laying in his bed on the phone in his white boxer briefs with the blue and white striped robe hanging open like he just got out of the shower or something. So he's just kind of sitting there in his bed with his underwear on and the robe hanging open. It was a sight to see. And if you did not see it, don't worry. I screen capped it for you. And you are welcome to go to yrchat.com to behold the beauty. Two minor characters of note from 1994. Amy Wilson, Nick's high school girlfriend of the time, and Matt Clark, Nick's high school rival. Matt was a real bad guy too. Real bad. He got sadistic. He was always jealous of Nick, first of all, and he was angry with Sharon for dumping him for Nick. So there was an incident where he beat up Nick pretty badly, and he also raped Sharon, and Matt also told Nick about that little secret that Sharon was keeping, that she was behind a year in school because she had gotten pregnant and given up the child for adoption, and that child, of course, was Cassie, and later Mariah, but whatever. Well, Matt, being the bad guy that he is, one day ended up dead, and because Nick had all of the motive to want to kill him, Nick wound up on trial for Matt's murder. It was a long trial too. It was a really long trial. Trials took forever in those days. But in the end, it was revealed that Amy was the one who shot Matt after he also tried to rape her. And so she shot him and then kind of just went blank, lost her mind a little bit, and it took her a while to recover from her whole mental trauma. But when she did, she testified on Nick's behalf. He was cleared of all charges. I remember the day. I remember the day sitting in front of my TV feeling the relief of Nick getting off of these charges. And then also, by the way, the fact that Amy's testimony was so key there is the reason why in the Nick and Sharon wedding episode, Amy came in to Sharon's bridal suite and Sharon was asking her to be a bridesmaid. So thankful for her to be there, because if it wasn't for Amy remembering and agreeing to testify and telling her story, then, you know, the wedding never would have happened. It was very dark. It was a very dark turn on this, at the time, teen storyline. So, yes, it was not all fun and pool parties in 1994 and 1995, but I'll tell you one thing for damn sure. My man Miguel sure knows how to throw together those delicious sausage dealies on the fly for a party out of nowhere. This was an impromptu pool/birthday party, and Miguel threw together those delicious sausage dealies like nobody's business. I think Nikki was right to be leery of Sharon. Sorry. I do. I think that Sharon knew exactly what she was doing to Nick. Nikki called it playing hard to get. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Sharon was playing hard to get with Nicholas, and then add in a dash of damsel in distress for Victor to pick up on. Oh, my poor crippled mother needs an operation. And boom, Sharon's a member of the family. Everybody loves her. Except Nikki. I think that Sharon understood how to manipulate men. I think Sharon understood the different ways she could get what she wanted. And I don't blame her for that. I don't think that Sharon was just a gold digger. I don't follow Nikki's attitude all the way through to gold digger or opportunist, but I think that Sharon, even then, even young, had a special skill with men, and she knew how to use it. I'm all for it, don't get me wrong, but I think we should acknowledge it. Two things, though, that the internet failed to tell me. I tried researching this and just could not get the answer. Maybe you guys can help me. Number one, was Doris's operation successful? Because even after she had the operation, I'm pretty sure she was still confined to the wheelchair. I don't remember Doris ever walking unless it's just vacated my mind. And I couldn't find anything about it, so maybe you guys could remember. But the number two thing I would love some clarification on, did Sharon ever repay Victor for her mother's operation? That would be it'd be a good thing to know. I mean, Sharon was expressing in that episode that she fully intended to pay Victor back, and I believe her. Again, I don't think she was just a gold digger or an opportunist, but she got what she wanted, and I think she was prepared to pay the cost for it. But at the same time, in 1994, that operation had to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't remember Sharon ever working at Newman Enterprises during that time, and I don't think she would have been able to pay him back with her wages from, owning the coffee house with Nick. So I guess my second question is, was Sharon's debt to Victor forgiven on the day, perhaps, that Sharon married Nick? My angel is the centerfold. I had completely forgotten about Victoria's nudie pic. Her expose. Oh, that was so great. Frankly, it is going to be hard for me to go back to Amelia Heinley's Victoria. I love her. I do. I love Amelia Heinley. I have accepted her as Victoria from the moment she took the role. I really did. It was a seamless fit. But I've been all in on Heather Tom for 3 months now, and I've barely seen a hair on Amelia's head. So it's gonna be tough because Heather Tom is Victoria again for me. Good. The nudie pics. Victoria was so upset to find out that Cole had been intimate with her mom before they had ever gotten together. And so Victoria was distraught, and she ran off to New York, and she agreed to pose for some nude photos. And the photographer turned around and released her photos without her approval, let them get published in this magazine. They were everywhere. Victor had to buy up every single copy. Well, except for the one that Ryan had stashed under his mattress. And Victor had after that bought up the publisher and dismantled the whole publishing company. Like Victor was on the war path, but still one copy of Victoria's nudie mag probably still exists today somewhere among Ryan's belongings. Which, by the way, Chance might have, because Chance would have thought of Ryan as his father for a while. Wonder if we could find a vintage copy today. How much would that go for on eBay? The Victoria Newman centerfold. She was not happy though. She was humiliated. She felt like a piece of raw meat, you guys. I mean, that's understandable. She was violated. I mean, the pics, she was all for the pics, but she did not agree to have them released. And I totally understand where she's coming from, but at the same time, this was a fun episode, and this was a fun idea for the story, and I kinda like remembering Victoria as this person who was embracing her sexuality there. I kinda like that Victoria is someone who you wouldn't expect to do that, but here she is, showing the world her full self. You know, she's supposed to fit into the cookie cutter that Victor wants her to be in, but this was her being a little rebel and saying, hello, here I am. And of course she didn't mean for the whole world to see it, but the fact that she did it kind of makes me appreciate her even more. Especially because Nina had said that Victoria had intimacy issues in her marriage to Ryan, which I don't think I was watching at all when Victoria was originally married to Ryan. So I don't know a whole lot about that, but I think she must have had some trouble in the bedroom. And then after they divorced, Victoria just totally burst through those inhibitions. And in fact, she went on to really become very sexual. And I think that was also part of the pull between Victoria and Ryan part 2. Do you remember those scenes that we saw early on in the classics where Victoria was skinny dipping at the ranch and she was trying to entice Ryan into the pool? I mean, this was her way of saying, hey, I didn't know how to do it then, but I know how to do it now. And I think Ryan wanted it. He wanted to know what it was gonna be like. And I mean, hey, Victoria was like always seducing Cole. A lot of what we've seen from Victoria and Cole's marriage was Victoria seducing him all over the tack house. I mean, Victoria, for all her inhibitions, went on to become a total sex pot. And it once again reminds me that Victoria, the character, used to be hot and spicy. And now she's just kind of cold and brittle. Christine's lingerie party was so much fun. It was just a fun episode. I've never even heard of a lingerie party for a bridal shower. Have you heard of that? Did that used to be a thing? Is it a thing now? I have no clue. I don't know if I would want to get 30 sets of different lingeries. Again, though, I'm more of a practical girl. I mean, I guess, though, that would be good for a bachelorette party, right? Less of a bridal shower, more of a bachelorette party with the lingerie. Then do the bridal shower and give the gifts that are a little more practical, but whatever. This was fun. This is way funner than any bachelorette party that Y&R would ever come up with today. No doubt about it. And all of the women of Genoa City, 1994, were there. It was like a who's who of the Y&R Lady Yearbook. It was a lot of people. I mean, today, if there was going to be a girls' party or a girls' night or a margarita party or whatever, we'd be lucky to have 6 people there, and half of them would hate each other. But all of these girls, there was a lot of girls, and they all really seemed like they wanted to be there, and they all really seemed like they were having a good time. It was happy. It didn't have to be juicy and dramatic. It was just girls being happy and even a little bit naughty. Nina was my absolute favorite. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with Nina all over again. Naughty Nina. Her gift to Christine was 7 different pairs of edible underwears in different colors and flavors. And gosh, she was cracking jokes the whole time too. Like, she was not afraid to be a little bit raunchy. I loved it. I love Nina. Gosh. And of course, Lauren. Lauren couldn't just give Chris a set of lingerie. Lauren had to run upstairs and put on the lingerie that she had designed and then wear it herself and prance down the stairs to model it for everyone and then make a big production out of the whole thing like it was a fashion show. And then just as Lauren was about to give us the summer preview, she locked eyes with Mary Williams, and then she noped out of there, ran right back upstairs like she was a sinner in church and she needed to get out. It was hot in there. Oh, Mary Williams. It hurts me a little. It was so awkward and so cringy. It hurts me. I feel bad for Mary, honestly. As an adult now watching it, because again, I'm 14 when I'm watching it originally, so Mary Williams just seems like this annoying, oppressive grandma. But as an adult now, I'm watching it, and I feel bad for her because who wants to be the wet blanket? Nobody wants to be the wet blanket, but Mary was just so rigid in her ways that she couldn't even allow herself, like she's so repressed and rigid that she couldn't even allow herself to have a little bit of fun, even for her son's sake. I mean, I know it's awkward because it's your son, but you know, I mean, why deny it? Why push it in the back and repress it or whatever? Why not embrace it? But then again, this is a more modern attitude. But it's still, are you telling me that Mary Williams never once put on lingerie for Carl? Come on. Husbands and wives are allowed to get down and dirty. I mean, doesn't God approve of 7 different flavors of edible underwear if they're entered into holy matrimony? I think that Mary probably just would have rather thought about, if she had to, if she was forced, she would have rather had to accept that Paul was having sex with a nice, neat girl like Lynn. She wanted Paul to have nice, neat sex with a nice, neat girl like Lynn. It astounds me that they would even invite Mary. Why did the girls even invite Mary? Or this could have been the Bachelorette. They could have done a separate bridal shower that was more appropriate. Or if they had to invite Mary, why didn't they clue her into the theme? I mean, Drusilla came to the party to give Christine the gift of a black leather bra and panties, and Mary Williams showed up with a toaster. A toaster! But it heats up in 30 seconds. What a feature. Paul has that toaster beat by 20 seconds, though, I think he said. So that Paul heats up in 10 seconds is the assumption. Hey, I I love the balance of Paul's attitude to Mary's attitude and the way he handled what his mom had done. I think Paul got redeemed right there for his mother's behavior by giving me a good, subtle, dirty joke. I approve. I was very excited to see Lon at Christine's party, and Lon was very warm and playful, and even Lon was able to play along with the theme. When Lon was not a flaunty lady, Lon was allowing herself to loosen up a little bit, and it was nice to see. I loved Lon. I remember being devastated when Lon died. Our first introduction to Lon, actually, was through Christine. Christine had become friends with her. Lon ran a local restaurant, which, by the way, is why Gina mentioned at the lingerie party about how good Lon was with the champagne bottle, and said something like, oh, do you have a little restaurant experience? You're pretty good with that champagne bottle. Well, yes, she did. She ran her own restaurant, and Lon had been shot and robbed one night while she was working. And Christine, who was devastated to find this out, went to Lon on what she thought was her deathbed, and Lon begged Christine to help her find her son so that she could see her son one more time before she died. So Paul and Christine actually traveled to Vietnam and found my man Chemo, played by Philip Moon. Excellent, excellent actor. Chemo should be on the show today. He's Jack's son. It's like it never happened. Lon ended up recovering, of course, from the shooting, and she explained to everyone how she had chemo after having a love affair with an American soldier in Vietnam. And then Chris surmised that the American soldier was Jack. Okay. So the idea of retroactively making Jack Abbott a Vietnam soldier just so that this story could happen was a big old flop and a big old leap. But it's no less of a floppy leap than some of the floppy leaps that we take today. I'm looking at you, Kyle. Sometimes you just got to get on board and go with it. Go with what you picked. And that's what I tried to do. That is what I tried to do. Jack and Lon ended up getting married, but she got sick like maybe a year later. She found out that she had an illness. I don't remember what it was, but she hid it from Jack. She didn't want him to know. And then she just finally suddenly died in 1996. But what a really nice lady. I mean, I know that maybe this character wouldn't play today, but in 94, I just was really taken with how humble she was and how smart she was and wise. I liked her values. She was very measured in her approach to things. She wasn't impulsive. She was very down to earth. She had a lot to offer. And yet at the same time, there was storyline potential there because she could, over time, allow herself to open up more and to have more fun. I mean, Lon is someone who couldn't even allow herself to get excited about going on this fabulous Caribbean vacation that Jack wanted her to have. I mean, there was so much play there. There was so much growth opportunity there, and I would have loved to have continued to see Lon. But then we had the opposite personality type, right? The other lady who had Jack's eye in 1994. Prior to Jack reuniting with Lon, there was Jack and Mary Jo Mason. Mary Jo Mason was conniving, and I remember her very well. She was oozing sex, oozing it. She was giving me that same sexy, slinky vibe as Phyllis. I guess Jack likes that sort of thing. Well, Mary Jo had previously had a relationship with our very own Blade Bladeson. And Mary Jo had given Blade and Ashley an original painting signed using her real name, Marilyn. Very secretive-like. Well, Mary Jo became deeply involved with Jack while she was blackmailing Blade on the side to keep his past relationship with her a secret, and also to keep a secret about Blade's twin brother, Rick Rickson. Blade Bladeson and Rick Rickson, twin brothers. No, I'm just kidding. It was Rick Bladeson, but Rick Rickson would have been better. I mean, again, if you're going to do with it, you need to jump on board and go with it. They should have just gone with Rick Rickson. Oh, well, gosh. Mary Jo was telling Blade that Blade had, unbeknownst to Blade, left his twin brother Rick to die. I think it was to drown. And she saw the whole thing. She was the only witness to the whole thing. But it wasn't true at all. Rick did not die. Rick showed up in town and he eviled around for a long time. In fact, he swapped places with Blade. I mean, you could have seen that coming. And it was totally unbeknownst to Ashley. So what Marco did to Jack, Rick did to Blade. It's actually very predictable with a twin storyline, but ew, it was, I mean, ick then, ick now. But because there was this secret twin floating around the place, Ashley had a moment where she saw Mary Jo kissing Rick because Rick couldn't help keeping his lips off of her. Ashley didn't know about the twin, so she assumed it was Blade. She broke off things with Blade, which was why Jack was asking Ashley in a later episode about her marital problems. And also, when Ashley told Jack about that, he broke things off with Mary Jo. So it seemed like Jack and Ashley's partners were caught smooching, and that was enough to break up both of those relationships. So Jack moved on with Lon. Mary Jo went nuts. She shot Victor, kidnapped Christine, and after Jack went on to marry Lon, Mary Jo got briefly involved with chemo. Briefly. But chemo! What is it about these Abbott family men? They seem to have absolutely no trouble sleeping with the same woman. Jack and John also had absolutely no problem sleeping with the same women. Or a same woman at least. No, the same women. Jack and John slept with more than one of the same woman. And they also had no problem teaming up to try to trick one of those women into giving up custody of her son. What was going on there? Jack and John had a wicked high-five session after Jill signed that divorce settlement document without her attorney and without fully reading it. She was so thrilled by the job offer that contract included that she didn't bother to read the fine details that said she would also have to give up custody of Billy to John. Are we absolutely sure that Phyllis was the one who ran Paul and Christine down with the car? Because the look on Lynn's face as she hugged Paul right before his wedding to Chris, that said to me that we have a second suspect here. Could have been Lynn. That's all I'm saying. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I think that Lynn really loved Paul. Obviously, she was so in love with Paul, but she loved him enough to just want him to be happy. And probably Lynn would have been a perfectly good match for Paul. The problem, I think, was that Mary Williams was always hanging around, pushing it. She was always nudging Lynn into Paul's direction, giving her false hope when it wasn't going to happen, even beyond where it was obvious that it wasn't going to happen. And that makes me feel bad for Lynn. She probably could have moved on way sooner. And when we get right down to it, I don't think that Mary disapproved of Christine because Christine was some terrible person. I think that Mary disapproved of Christine because Christine wanted a career. And Mary was afraid that Christine wasn't going to stay home and raise the kids the way that she had. It wasn't the type of woman that she expected Paul to marry. But at the same time, what would have made Lynn so different? Lynn was a working girl too. I don't know. I don't know. Mary just must have felt like, she could control Lynn a little better? I don't know. But I'm surprised that Lynn did not see that whole accident and throw herself in front of Paul, who was throwing himself in front of Christine, and then maybe Danny could have shown up and fought with Paul over who was going to throw themselves in front of the car and save Christine first. True, very true to soap opera form. When Danny found out about Paul and Christine's accident, he decided to stay in town. He decided not to go to New York City after all. No. In the episode that followed the hit and run, I'm sure that Danny would have been in Phyllis's apartment when she returned from what she had just done, going for a drive. I don't think that Phyllis ever found out about that. I don't think that Phyllis's connection to this crime was ever uncovered. I remember we saw an episode a couple weeks ago where Ricky was trying to dig into it. Do you remember? Ricky wanted to write a book or do an article expose on Phyllis, and he was going through some of her old credit card statements and found that she had purchased a rental car on her charge card, but nothing ever came of it. I mean, it was one of those things that the viewers always knew, but the rest of Genoa City didn't know. It was like, Phyllis was always also kind of under suspicion, though. I mean, I think everybody knew that she did it, but she was never brought to justice for it. There was never enough evidence to connect her to the crime. I don't even entirely understand why Phyllis would want to kill Chris at this particular point, right as Chris was getting ready to get married off to Paul. I mean, Paul and Christine's marriage was actually the culmination of Phyllis's plan. Phyllis had officially broken up Christine and Danny's marriage, kept them from reuniting a million different times in a million different ways, and now Chris was marrying someone else. Phyllis should have just been happy about that. But I guess Phyllis was just to the point where she was so sick of cricket that she wanted to squash the bug. And if that didn't work, she could at least continue to creep Christine out, putting that slimy octopus in the bed. And if that didn't work, Phyllis could always just wait around another 20 years for Nikki to also hit Christine with a car. Question you may be asking yourselves is, why did it take from December of 1994, when that car non-accident happened, why did it take all the way from December of 94 until August of 1996 for Paul and Chris to finally be married? That car accident delayed their ceremony a whole year and a half. So a lot happened in between the car and the altar. Well, first of all, according to Soap Central, the car accident left Paul impotent, which I did not remember at all until I heard it, and now maybe I vaguely remember. I'm not sure. It rings a little bit of a bell, but I don't remember how Y&R handled those scenes. I'd be interested to know how Y&R handled that topic. Did they play Paul's impotence for pure drama, or did they use it to talk about a men's health issue? I'm not sure. But the second and probably bigger reason that Paul and Chris's wedding got delayed in that time span was because Paul walked in and found that Chris and Danny had slept together. See, I think that's why, and it's proof that Chris and Paul's relationship was a little bit shaky, because Danny was always there. And Danny would have been the one that Christine would have been with if Phyllis hadn't faked a one-night stand and faked a pregnancy. But I'm glad that Paul and Chris got together. I'm glad they found their way to each other. There's something to be said for the safe choice, you know, someone who you know you can trust your heart with. It's not always a good idea to go with the person, to unite with the person who maybe lights your passion a little harder, but you know that it's it's not as safe. I mean, there's something to be said for picking a mate who you can trust, who you have the passion with. And maybe it's not like burning hunk of love, but who you know you can trust with your heart. And that's what I get from Paul and Christine. They trust each other, and it was pretty wonderful to see their wedding. I really liked the scenes in the bridal suite where Nina was talking to Chris, saying, "You are my best friend. I have so enjoyed living next to you and spending all of this time with you, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't afraid of losing that. I'm afraid of losing our closeness as friends when you go and you get married." That is so relatable, right? It's too bad that Nina couldn't come back for a visit these days. I mean, she did several years back, but it's been a while. She could at least come back for a holiday trip to see Chance, and then maybe have a girls' lunch or something with Chris. That would be great. That would be great. It also develops around Chance. Did you see Chris's dress? It was a very unique dress. I think that the 1996 wedding dress was much more appealing than the 1990 Hawaiian wedding dress. And I think it's also very interesting that she chose blue. I mean, she had a white veil, and there was some white detailing on it, but the majority of it was blue. The skirt was blue, the corset was blue, and I did a couple of re-watches on the actual wedding ceremony so that I could see the dress, and there was a lot of sewing and beading details that went onto that corset. The fact that it had that corset made it give me kind of a medieval or a fairy tale vibe. Yes, she was like Cinderella, and Paul was the prince. Oh, Paul was so cute. Like, Paul, there's a lot to be said for him. He is loving, and he's supportive, and he's committed. I mean, Paul is a good, solid choice. He's not as exciting and flashy as Danny, but Paul is a good husband. And the way that Paul was looking at Christine, like, I totally believe that he was looking at the love of his life. And the other thing that struck me from the ceremony was, of all of the wedding soap opera vows that we've heard over the years, Paul's vows to Christine rang the most true. They seemed the most honest, because what Paul said to her off the cuff was, "I cannot promise you that there will be no pain, but I can promise you that you won't have to go through it alone." I love that. I think that's so true. That is the symbol of marriage right then and there. I can't promise you perfect,
but I can promise you that I will be there with you. Like, we talked during weddings week about how a lot of these soap opera wedding vows always ring a little hollow because the characters are promising forever faithfulness, and you just know that that's never going to happen. But Paul's vows almost came off to me like he was saying, I know we're going to disappoint each other, but I love you. I'm here for you. That's the point. That is the point of partnership. Which is different from like a sexual, I mean, hopefully you got both, but it's I'm just thinking in terms of Chris's choice. The choice of Paul as opposed to the choice of Danny, because we saw Danny in that same episode. He wanted to be with her. She had the choice of Danny and she chose Paul. She chose the commitment. And I think that it was so great. And I think, you know, Paul and Chris choosing commitment was so much better than how in that very same episode, in the Paul and Chris wedding episode, Sharon was standing there before the wedding at the ranch having to remind Nicholas what the definition of marriage is. Nicholas, there are a lot of couples who love each other and they move in together and maybe they get a pet. But we got married. Do you know what that means, you ding-a-ling? We got married. It means that we don't run away from each other just because you got me pregnant. It's so weird watching all of these classic episodes because I've started to forget who's actually together right now in 2020. Because I had a legitimate moment this week of thinking that Nick and Sharon were still together today. And it's probably because we've spent a lot of time in the 90s. And I mean, this week we had 4 episodes from the 90s, plus the Paul Saves Christine from Isabella episode from 2003. This was an exceptional episode from A to Z. I mean, what a way to build suspense. We see Isabella pushing Christine's weary head under the water and bringing up her hand, Christine not following the hand. And then we see Paul walking into the apartment. And there is this natural anticipation that Paul is just going to walk right in. And he's going to see Isabella. And he's going to rescue Christine right away. But that is not what happened. I could not believe when Paul was walking around the apartment, going into the bedroom, going all the way to the bathroom door, and then backing away, rationalizing to himself that Chris was okay and he's just being overprotective. I was dying. He went back out into the main room, which was so sophisticated, by the way. Oh my gosh, the set for Chris and Paul's apartment in 2003, it was so beautiful. It had depth, it had dimension. You had a sense in one frame, in one stagnant frame, that there were multiple rooms. Like the way they had it sectioned off with the different glass, you had a sense of depth. Oh, it was so gorgeous. Plus they had that whole big view of the city in the background. That was a gorgeous, gorgeous apartment. But Christine was drowning in the bathtub. And Paul was just standing there having a drink, talking to himself, making him a sandwich, scratching his butt. And all the while, I'm practically crawling out of my skin. Finally, it was Isabella. She finally just flings open the door. And the look on Paul's face of horror. Isabella was supposed to be dead. And now here she is telling him that Christine is dead. Paul didn't waste no time. Paul just knocks her out. Bam! Can you even believe that? He just punches Isabella right in the head. Y&R would never
never do that today. They would make Paul tie Isabella to a chair or something safe. They would make Paul use his very best Eagle Scout knot tying abilities to tie the perfect knots to make sure that Isabella was secure in the chair, and then 20 minutes later rush in to save Christine. That was a shocker, though. That was a real shocker with it. He just punched Isabella out. And he made sure she was out, and then he rushed in to save Christine. And it had to be too late, right? Christine was under the water for so long. He pulled her up and out, and he started giving her the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And while he was doing that, Isabella snuck up behind him again with the knife, getting ready to plunge it into his back, when Michael appears from nowhere and wrestles the knife away from her. Paul saved Christine's life, and Michael saved Paul's life, which was a really important redemption tie-in for Michael. Michael was the one who brought Isabella on, so Michael had to be the one to take Isabella out. Mwah! Perfect. Absolute perfection. Absolute perfection all around. And maybe I was hard on Isabella last time when we saw her during Villains Week. She is not the greatest villain in my mind, but she was by no means bad at the task. She had that maniacal laugh as the police were interrogating her and then hauling her away. Like, her craziness was darkly entertaining, but it wasn't always that way. And that was only a little brief period. When I think of Isabella, I think of more so everything that led up to the bathtub incident. Isabella really didn't get that crazy until the end. Most of the time she was just sexy desperate, which a lot of characters on soaps are. The paramedics arrive and revive Christine, but just before she came back to life, she had what I think is one of the best flashing of life before your eyes moments that I have ever seen portrayed on TV. Because here's the twist. It was a flash backwards. Normally we would see someone having a life flashing moment, life flashing before your eyes moment, and it would go from beginning to end. But this was flashing from the present back to the past. It started with Christine's engagement to Michael, representing how Michael had won. He had broken up Paul and Christine. Michael had gotten the woman that he had wanted. But the flash then showed us how we got there. It was Christine walking in on Paul and Isabella having sex. And then Christine was remembering her marriage to Paul, her wedding to Paul, her engagement to Paul, going back to her betrayal by Danny, her life with Danny, her marriage to Danny, their wedding in Hawaii, their courtship in the 80s. It was everything that a flashback should be in reverse. So simple. And yet that was so creative. I had to rewind it and rewatch it a couple times just to take it all in. That was so good. Oh, and the cherry on top of that cake? Christine comes back to life, and she is just wanting to seek comfort in her own bed. Paul tucks her in, and he just cares about her. And you just see how much he just loves her. And he tucks her in, he sees she's sleeping, and you know he wants to go in there and get all up in her and hug her and kiss her. But he doesn't do that. He sees her sleeping, he says she needs her rest. So he starts to walk away, and Christine opens her eyes. And she just silently holds out her hand, kind of motioning him to come to her. And he, I'm sure, is so relieved to see that. And he crawls into bed with her, and they just lay there.
just quietly loving each other and being grateful that she is alive. There were no words in that final scene. It was like no words for nearly 3 minutes. Everything at the end of that episode was being said by saying nothing at all.
Next week's theme is summer fun.
Yes, yes, yes. I need some summer fun.
This is the perfect theme coming off of the 4th of July week. I want to see some pools. I want to see some barbecues.
And I even think we are going to be seeing
a re-broadcast of the Sharon and Nick sex tent episode.
Cool. Cool. Because I think most U.S. viewers didn't get to see that one during Romance Week because everyone was preempted that day. And it was a long preemption. I don't remember what it was, but I remember having to go online and dig around to find it. And so I'll be excited to see it now again in better quality and actually get to see the details of the sex tent. Yay!
Good news.
But bad news. Bad news on the production front. Y&R was supposed to begin filming new episodes on July 2nd, but now it's been delayed into next week. That's what I know at the time of recording this. It's supposed to start next week, but who knows if that's even gonna happen. Because it seems like there's a whole new surge in illnesses, and I am guessing that Y&R will probably want to play it as safe as possible. So, I don't know, but let's stay hopeful and positive and keep thinking about how great it will be when we get back to new episodes. So after all of this time has passed, and after all of these, classic episodes have been airing for so long, how much change would you like to see to the show when Y&R resumes production? That's our poll question of the week. Maybe you don't want to see any changes at all. Maybe when Y&R comes back, you want them to pick up right where they left off. Stories, people, everything the same. Just get back to the same. Or maybe there are some tweaks that you would like to see made to the show here and there. And if so, I hope you let us know what it is that you want to see. Maybe you want to see a massive overhaul. Maybe you want Y&R to just ditch all of the old stories, make some hard cuts, make some hires, and do a total rebuild of the show from the ground up. How much change do you want to see in the show when Y&R resumes production? Go to yrchat.com to cast your vote and leave me some comments and let me know what your opinion is. You just added 10 years onto my life. That was our quote from last week's shows. I am a little brat because I chose this quote from Brad. Brad is the person who said, "You just added 10 years onto my life." He said it to Victoria in 2016, and the reason I chose it is because Brad died 3 years later in 2019. Second I heard that line coming out of his mouth, "You just added 10 years to my life," I thought, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You added 3 years. Took away 7. Do the math. Hey, Henry, Daisy, Jamie, Victoria, and Ambreen, you guys caught my little snarkiness there. You got it right. How about this one, since we spent so much time in the 90s this past week? No phones, no faxes. Who said it? I think this is a good line also taking us into summer fun week. No phones, no faxes. So when you're out at your barbecues and stuff, this, now,
having enjoying your summer fun in your own personal life. Don't you even be thinking about running inside to get a fax. That is a hard and fast rule for this week. No phones, no faxes. And if you think you know who said it, go to yrchat.com to leave your guess. And if you get it right, I will give you your grand shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. Well, let's read some comments of yours about Paul and Christine week, starting with Gary, who says, not necessarily saying or not that Paul and Christine have perfect chemistry, but they are a perfect match for each other. Two blonde heads who are equal. Two who completely complement each other while basically sharing the same agenda in life. Do we need opposites who attract to make a memorable soap couple? They've lasted a very long time together. And of course, having no life, they have no conflict. And for us, the audience, does absence make our hearts grow fonder? Welcome to your own week, you two. It's almost as if Y&R knows it has screwed these two actors over. Not that Laura Lee wants to come back to work, but with being pushed to the back of the bus, and this is their little peace offering. Given this week's showcase, maybe retro audiences will rise up and demand more of Paul and Christine. A life, a house, and revealing promised career plans for cricket. Wait, consider budget and scrap the house. Not mandatory, as everyone lives in their places of business, their favorite restaurant, or their hotel. Yes, oh my goodness. Well, I love that you're kind of speaking to that. You're articulating very well the idea that I was trying to say, that it's just that it doesn't always have to be fire. It doesn't always have to be opposites attract. Sometimes it's just, hey, we're on the same path. Let's do it together, holding hands. That's so great. I love that assessment of it. And also, I do wonder why specifically Y&R chose Paul and Chris week. Was it a nod to the fans who have been asking for more of them? Doug Davidson is the longest running cast member who's not really on the show all that much right now. So maybe this was their way of giving those fans a little something. But you also bring up this point that I forgot about, that we were promised knowledge of a new career path and a new life path and a new direction for Christine, and we never got it. Maybe the fact that they're airing this series of episodes is a signal that Y&R has plans for Paul and Chris for the near future. Maybe they always did. I don't know. But it's a good point. Victoria says, OMG, I didn't know that Victor walked Christine down the aisle in her wedding to Paul. Their relationship really hit a nosedive when she later put Victor in prison. Yeah, I think, you know what? I think that Y&R made Victor more villainous as time went on. I don't know if they were just struggling to find something to do with him or what, but Victor used to be so close with Christine. He used to be so close with Sharon. I mean, and then they decided to just use Victor as a tool to push forth some, always had to be some plot that he was pushing forward. And the more that they focused on Victor pushing a plot, the less they focused on Victor as a character, the less they developed him as a character. Because I did not remember until I saw it that Victor had walked Christine down the aisle. That is a monumental thing to ask of someone. I mean, obviously they were close. Obviously she was looking at him as a father figure. I also think she was working for him at the time, right? So it's also a little bit weird that she would ask her boss to walk her down the aisle, but I do think it speaks to that closeness there. And also you're bringing up how totally that relationship deteriorated once Christine became the DA. And once again, Y&R just used Victor to push plot, doing evil things, doing illegal things, and because they had also decided to make Christine the district attorney, that it deteriorated that relationship, and many others deteriorated right along with it. Daisy says, I thought Christine's wedding dress and veil were really pretty. I would love it if they had some shows with costume designers through the years. Maybe there's footage of the costumes being made? I think it would be fun and interesting to hear the different designers through the years. This is like the best comment I've heard all week, Daisy. I love this idea. Wouldn't that be fabulous if Y&R did some interviews with their costume designers and maybe pulled out a couple of important pieces, like wedding dresses, and just had the designer talk about the piece and how it related to the Y&R history? Oh my gosh, that would be something so cool that would probably take a ton of time to put together, but it would be so cool for the fans. Oh, I would watch that in a heartbeat. Ooh, if you can think of any other costumes of note that would go in like the Y&R Costume Hall of Fame, what would it be? What are some other memorable Hall of Fame costumes? Oh. Ooh, okay, I gotta think about that one. I'm gonna try. But for now, I'm going to move on. Oh, wait, maybe we could have maybe we can include some footage of whoever it was that designed Christine's new black leather bra and panty set that she received at the lingerie party. Superplex says, 7 flavored edible panties, Lauren doing a striptease, John and Jack zeroing in on Jill's posterior, best episode of the decade. I can't argue with that. I mean, the lingerie party alone, I mean, that was such a good episode. It was pure joy. Everything about that episode was pure joy. We need more of that. Take note, Y&R. And then we had Mary Williams as the foil. Gary says, when Mary Williams began on Y&R, she was a representation of a conservative Catholic mother, wife, woman. Over time, she became a bit of a caricature of that. Not in an over-the-top way, but Y&R liked to put her in embarrassing situations or make her appear foolish. I knew that was a toaster she had in that wrapped box and at Christine's door, and not candy underwear. I knew it was a toaster and not candy underwear. There's a place for everyone in this life. Allie is the only one who will plainly tell you that Mary is best remembered for her prized sauerkraut and spare ribs. Yes, that's how I remember her, the sauerkraut and spare ribs. But yeah, I mean, Mary's character could have been explained a little better. I mean, her perspective, I suppose, could have been represented better as the years had gone on, because I agree. I remember seeing her more so as a caricature, not just someone who was the thorn in the side, you know. It could have been more, but it certainly wasn't. Maybe they just didn't know what to do with Mary. Maybe they felt they hit a wall, or there just wasn't anywhere else to go. I don't know. Well, let's talk about our poll question from last week, which was, who had the best Emmy-winning performance of last week? And this is actually a really interesting result. The first place winner was Peter Bergman as Jack. No doubt that was a powerful performance inside of a powerful episode. What's interesting to me, though, is that the second place winner is Cameron Grimes as Cassie. And it was a really close vote, too. 34% picked Jack, 31% picked Cassie. I mean, there's like one vote in between those two. And I guess that's interesting to me because the top 2 favorite performances came from someone like Peter Bergman, who is such an experienced actor, and also on the other end of the spectrum, an actor who was just starting out. So just how cool that those were the top 2. There also was a tie for third place between Brighton James as Devon and Beth Maitland as Tracy, with Eric Braden as Victor bringing up the rear here with one single vote. All of these performances were Emmy winning, but it's interesting to see when stacked together which ones were the favorite. Sherrod says, I loved Beth Maitland as Tracy. She was actually the first person to win an Emmy for the show.
But my vote has to go to Cassie. That little girl was a powerhouse. The part at the end about God hearing her wish and giving her the family she wanted goes to show how precious and unpretentious this kid was, to give credit to someone or something other than herself. Also, a little more spiritual belief put back onto the show these days would not hurt. I said spiritual, not religious. There's a difference. Oh, Sharon, okay, first of all, I have to zero in on your assessment of Cassie being unpretentious. Yes, that's the problem that I seem to have with a lot of the other child actors, and it's the reason why I just spent a lot of years not liking Faith or cringing at Faith, because she always had that pretentiousness about her, whereas Cassie had all of this humility to, in this moment of her victory, give it away, give the glory and the thanks to God. I mean, there was something about that was watching it from a modern perspective very striking. And I think this is an interesting comment coming off of our discussions last week about the place that religion has had on the show then versus now. There's absolutely no real spiritual or religious presence on the show right now. They certainly have navigated away from that probably within the last decade, I would say. Whereas I think, it's an American show, and I think most Americans have some feeling of spirituality. There's some place for spirituality in their lives. Of course, we have many different religions and and specificity, but it just really isn't there on an overarching level. Well, TB84 says, okay, I know I'm a week behind, but I just watched the last week's Monday episode, and I gotta tell you, the performance of Beth Maitland, I just don't know how this whole accident was just so emotional. And this was the year I was born, 1984. I had no idea about life. And watching it now, it's like, wow, and gosh, what a star! What an impact while watching it for the first time. I don't even know what to write. It was truly moving and truly deserved the Emmy Award. Teary-eyed. I know, so good. 1984. I know, I would have been 4 years old when that happened, and I think that's part of the reason it's such a pleasure to go back and watch these episodes, because they were so dynamic and they were so appealing, and it is so much different than anything we're seeing on TV today. There's different tones, there's different topics, and it's interesting to have your modern perspective and to go back and watch a classic episode. So different and so good and new to me. I mean, the classics from 84, that's new to me. Lynn4283 says, I voted for my favorite, Bryton James, who had the best Emmy-winning performance. Yes, Lynn, I should have guessed that you were going to vote for Bryton. I know how much you love Devon. And he's part of another now famous Y&R soap couple. I mean, Bryton James and Brittany Sharpie, who play Devon and Elena, are also together in real life. And I think I saw an article a week or two ago that they've moved in together now. So, I mean, we know they're going to be getting married. We know they're going to be getting married. And then that probably means that Y&R will have Devon and Elena getting married too. How much you want to bet? Well, speaking of our real life Y&R soap couples, Ellen says the current day Sharon Case Marc Grossman romance is the best storyline of the week. Of course, I'm a fan, as the writers can bring back Chatham without any concerns about social distancing now. Do it. Oh, oops, I forgot about wonderful Ray, didn't I? Who can he be comforted by when he loses Sharon to her true love, Adam? Any suggestions? Yes, well, first of all, I have to say that was kind of the best storyline of the week, not gonna lie. I mean, I had to lead off with that, because as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, this news blows all of the other news out of the water. That is so juicy to me. Wow. But Sandra says we may not have to worry about Ray if rumors hold any truth at all. Word on the street is that Jordy is leaving. We'll have to wait and see. No! Are you kidding me? I hope this is just a rumor. Please let this be I've lost Kane and I cannot lose Ray. I can't go through this again. Don't do this to me, Y&R. I can almost see it being the writing on the wall, though. I just have felt ever since they cut Arturo and Celeste and broke Lola and Kyle up, I have just felt like Y&R is not committed to the Rosaleses, and they let go Mia from the minute they cut those Rosaleses. I had a feeling that Y&R was not going to be committed to Ray, and they've put him with Sharon, and he's been amazing with Sharon, but I don't know. I just feel like they were placating the character and placating the fans a little bit with it. It doesn't surprise me. Like, on a level, it doesn't surprise me at all. I can just tell that he's this gem. It's sort of like this just undeveloped gem. There's many of them, but I will be sad if that is true. Darn. So many hunks come and go from this show, such as Damon Porter. Diana says, I had to find out more about Damon Porter and Phyllis as I was intrigued to know what Phyllis was looking so guilty about when Jack told her that he was meeting with Drusilla to talk about Damon. Just as I suspected, Phyllis and Damon had shared a passionate kiss. Not shocking to learn this, as we know Phyllis is a cheater. I didn't realize that Phyllis had cheated on Jack with another man other than Nick. The whole Damon Porter story was quite a crazy story that involved Phyllis dressing up as a man and a lot more. I don't remember that part. I don't remember Phyllis dressing up as a man, but I definitely could read between the lines to guess that she and Damon had locked lips or something had happened between them. We talked about Damon Porter maybe 2 weeks ago. He had a little bit of focus, and I saw a lot of comments, people saying they just really didn't like him, didn't connect with him, and I think maybe I didn't connect with him at the time either. But going back and watching this week's episode from 2003 that was very centered around Damon Porter and who's gonna get him, who's gonna win him and woo him, and who's gonna woo him to the corporate side, and who's gonna woo him into the bedroom side, and it was all Damon. Everybody was fighting over Damon. I mean, going back and watching that episode, I really liked Damon. I said this a couple weeks ago. I liked seeing him today. I kind of liked his peace, hippie, namaste vibe. I mean, Jack was red-faced, yelling at Damon in the foreground, and Damon walked out, was in the background, get ready to walk out the door, and he did the whole namaste hand thing. It was such an incredible contrast to a show that was very much driven at the time by the competition between Jabot and Newman Enterprises. And here old Damon Porter was right in the middle of it, just kind of being this peaceful, hippie, alternative worldview guy, going to his horse farm in Georgia to clear his mind after he'd been lured into this hot kiss with Phyllis, I'm sure of it. And he had to get back in touch with himself. See, I like that now, but I will say, it's probably something I would like in small doses. I have a feeling that if you're kind of watching his vibe over the course of weeks and months, I can see how it wouldn't necessarily, it would get a little exhausting. You'd be like, hey, can you just do something? Can you just pick a side and do something? But seeing it purely in a one episode snippet, I really liked Damon. I liked his attitude. I liked that he was standing up to Jack and saying, this is what I signed on for. This is what I did. This is my job. This is my life. They're two different things. So that was kind of cool. I liked that about him. He was a man of conviction. And I think Y&R probably could have done more with him. But when you are the man of conviction on a soap opera, I mean, you either have to flip him into the bad side or you probably do have to cut him. Because after a while, there's not a lot of drama there. There's not a lot of play there. But I think it was Gary who told me when we talked about it 2 weeks ago that he was from another soap. Was it As the World Turns or Guiding Light? I'm not sure, and probably neither. But yeah, Gary had said that he was from another show, so I almost kind of wonder if maybe fans had trouble accepting him in a different type of role. I'm not sure. Well, let's see here. How about we talk about another soap hunk that had to come and go? Cole. Kyle says, how do you take a very sexy Cole and make him not sexy? Put him in a green satin robe and offer him cold chicken and sandwiches. No freaking kidding, Kyle. Cold chicken has got to be the least sexy meal on the planet. There ain't nothing more unsexy than cold chicken. But it is so funny that you heard that line and it registered with you, because when Victoria's sitting in the background, Cole's in his silk robe in the foreground, and she's saying, do you want to come eat? I have some cold chicken and sandwiches. It's really delicious. No, she said, it tastes really good. I don't know why, but that just hit me in the face like cold chicken. It tastes really good. I don't get it. I don't know why it was cold chicken. Why was that the thing? But it seems like if you're trying to warm up your man, you might want to warm up the microwave to go along with it. Or how might I recommend a toaster? I think that Mary Williams might be able to point you to a model to be used at least for the toast on your sandwiches. I hear it heats up in 30 seconds. A follow-up from last week when I was making a comment about Drusilla's VHS library. Zoperplex says, wasn't Victoria Rowell a supporting cast member of Diagnosis Murder? That's why she had the Diagnosis Murder tape. I think somebody else said that she was like a full cast member on Diagnosis Murder. So what a cool Easter egg that Y&R put in there. So at the time they're filming around Drusilla's VHS library, they put that little sticker on that tape and they said, let's give a nod to Victoria's work on what I assume was another CBS show. Diagnosis Murder. Are there any fans? Cool. I think I knew that at the time, but didn't remember it because I never watched it. Well, you know, I chose this week's poll question about when Y&R production resumes. What changes do you want to see? I chose that question because I saw a lot of people offering some suggestions naturally. Just there seemed like since Y&R was slated to have gone back to production last week, a lot of people wanted to weigh in and say what they wanted to say. And actually, Gary has mentioned this to me in the past, and I should have said it before because this is very true. Gary says, unlike the taping of the show, it's written far into the future, but we don't know how far. So to rework the show, they need to be hard at work rewriting the show, which they probably are in whatever form that it takes. Who would like to see Connor at age 17? They might. I mean, they certainly might. But you make the best point that the show may be filmed 4 to 6 weeks in advance, but it, for all I know, may be written 6 months in advance, a year in advance. I don't know. But I never really fully made that connection before. I guess I kind of assumed they were writing and filming closer in timeline, but it makes a lot of sense that these scripts are probably very well structured. They know, you know what it is though, is it seems like in more recent years, they don't necessarily know where they're going with the storyline by the time they're filming it. I mean, I think that's a fair point. A lot of times it feels like they're making up the story on the fly and that it's not necessarily well planned. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I hadn't really thought of it that way. So it's a very good point. I kind of doubt they're rewriting in a way. I mean, to be honest with you, I bet they're... The question on the table is, what do we want to see when they come back? But I can bet you we're going to see a whole lot more of the same. There is no way they decided to go put any resources and paying anybody to go rewrite this show right now. No way. No way, Jose. But we can keep dreaming. Diana says, when the new episodes begin airing, Y&R really needs to acknowledge where Sharon's mother is and why they're not in contact with her anymore. I'm sure that the fans have never forgotten about Doris Collins, as Y&R would like us to by never mentioning her. I would also love to see a storyline of Sharon finding her father, as this was a prediction I had made for 2020. I'd predicted that Ray would help Sharon fulfill her mission to find her father after her scare with cancer before it's too late. Oh, yeah, gosh, that would have been good, because Ray would have been the perfect person to help Sharon find her father. It's astounding to me that they have never dug into the story of Sharon's father, and it is equally as astounding to me that Doris played a pretty substantial role on the show in the 90s, and she kind of quietly went away. And all right, characters come and go, but they just never mention her. I mean, Sharon is going through breast cancer and has never even just taken a moment to say, I talked to my mom and, I'm going to meet up with her off screen. I mean, that would be such an easy thing to do. Just such an easy nod, such an easy acknowledgement that they don't do. Kyle says, I think Doris Collins was fishing for compliments about her decorations on Sharon's cake. The flowers and writing looked pretty pro to me. And the triple raspberry layer filling inside was the real attraction at the Newman pool party, aside from Matt Clark's bod. Yes, it went sausage dealies, and then Sharon's mom's raspberry triple layer cake, and then Matt Clark's bod. Those were the three real attractions of the Newman pool party of '94, summer of '94. I did notice. I thought that the cake that Doris made when it was sitting on the table looked like a homemade cake, and then when they cut it at the party, I was like, dang. That is some pretty pro-level layer right there. I'm not a cake maker, but I know it's ridiculous because I'm kind of food obsessed, but I really liked that Sharon's mom made her birthday cake. She's 19, even let's say she was 18. Her mom made her birthday cake, and then Nick called to invite her to have the party at his house, and she was like, should I bring my cake? That's so cute! And then, did you see she put it in a little cake, what do you call it? The cake transporter Tupperware thing that you got up there that's just taking up room in your shelf. If you have to take a cake on the go, the cake to go container. She had it in her little cake container and she took it to the party, and I just thought that was so adorable. It made Sharon seem so young. Still had a mom cake at age 19. At age 15. Ellen says, does Nikki care at all that Doris needs money for an operation? That seems to go right over her head. All she cares about is protecting her baby boy from Sharon from the wrong side of the tracks. No empathy from Nikki from humble beginnings. She may do charity work, but she doesn't live those values, aka everyone is created equal, and Victor sees right through her. That's a good perspective, Ellen. You're totally right. I don't know why. It was because Sharon was giving these little, just the way she was toying with Nick when I know she wanted him. I know it now. And then there was all these little moments where she was slightly smiling, and then she went off and was like dancing with Matt while she knew Nick was looking. And then the follow-up episode with the operation, I thought, she knows what she's doing. She just knows exactly what she's doing. But you do make an excellent point here that Nikki was just she couldn't see anything but getting Sharon away from Nick
That was her sole and complete purpose. And yeah, I mean, she definitely didn't care two hoots about Doris and her operation. I want to know if the operation was successful or not. What happened? What's the follow-up to that? I don't know. Tony says, these are my suggestions for the return of new episodes. Number 1, they can continue where they left off in all the storylines, which equals boring. Number 2, they can clear the slate and start some new storylines, jumbling up the characters in interesting ways, but that would be confusing. Number 3, they can right the wrongs that they made in the past, ignoring the consistency factor, and continue as if those wrongs never happened. Yeah, kind of is my poll is sort of inspired by this idea. What exactly is it that Y&R is going to do? What direction are they going to pick? I don't know that Y&R thinks they've made wrongs. You know what I mean? I don't know that the current writing team is going to think of themselves as having made mistakes. I don't think the current writing team is as in tune with fan reaction as some of the other writing teams. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but I don't think that they think they made mistakes, and so therefore I don't think they think that they're going to go back and correct any. I think they're probably going to continue on with business as usual. I kind of like the idea of wiping it clean, though. It's crazy to say that, but there is this part of me that goes, so much has happened. And yeah, I mean, sinking back into something familiar does sound appealing, but we've had a whole lot of familiar for the last 3 months. I mean, a lot of these classics are familiar to me. I almost want to vote for chaos. There's a part of me that just goes, if they just wiped the slate clean and just even made it like, pretend it's like 2 years even down the road. Just like come back and all of a sudden we're like 2 years down the road and everything's just crazy. And we have to spend the next like 6 months figuring out what the heck happened in the last 2 years. That would be fresh and exciting to me. I think that would be a way to interest fans coming off of the hiatus. Like, because I think people would say, what? These two are together. These two people are together. How'd that happen? And then we spend some time kind of filling that in. I think that would be a cool approach. So they're not going to do it. Again, it will be business as usual. Safe, safe, safe. This writing team especially likes safe. And, you know, I mean, we're talking about this quite a bit. I mean, you got your chance for passion, and that's all well and good. But I think, you know, the safe choice is sometimes the right choice if you want to keep your job. Jamie says, these classic episodes have been a wonderful time capsule to relive and explore. I have wonderful memories of Y&R in the late 80s with my great-grandma Josephine on summer trips to her adorable house, though I consider my official viewing year start as 1993. Going forward, I think Classic Friday would be an awesome addition to our regular lineup. Oh, I love it. I think so many people, Jamie, got their start watching soaps because their grandma, right? Mom was probably working, but grandma might have been hanging at home, and you could take a little trip to grandma's house and help her watch her stories. I think that's so relatable. Do you want to hear one? Okay. I will. This is an annoying mom thing, but I gotta tell you, my daughter was sitting at the table, have eaten with me while I was watching the episode where Paul saves Christine from Isabella. And we get to the part where it's right at the opening of the episode where Isabella takes her hand and pushes Christine's head into the bubble bath. And my daughter looked at the screen and said, "So clean." Oh, it's such an annoying mom story, but I gotta tell you, it really made me laugh because I'm sitting here, I'm watching a murder about taking place, and all my daughter's looking at is the bubble bath and thinking about, wow, Christine's got her whole head underwater. She must be so clean now. Oh, I hope to be able to impart I hope to be able to pass along the soap opera, the love of soap operas to my daughter. She pays a little more attention than she used to, but I think she likes Bold and the Beautiful better. because both play, and she'll look up at him sometimes, and it just, I think she pays more attention to Bold and the Beautiful than that figure. Won't it figure if she ends up liking a rival soap? Not that it's a rival, but the one I want her to watch is Y&R. So I don't pressure her. It's on casually, and if she wants to learn about life, here it is. But I try not to push it. But I love your idea about Classic Fridays. When Y&R resumes production, I totally want Classic Fridays or Classic Mondays, whichever. I don't care. But let's get some episodes taped and in the can, and I don't want to burn through them right away. I wish the Y&R would have not aired all of the new episodes that we had so soon. I wish they would have started with classics a couple days a week right when everything shut down. Like, I wanted Classic Fridays from the moment that production shut down. And so I want Classic Fridays when we come back. I want to savor the new episodes, but still sip on the classics. All right, everybody. I think this was a long one. I sure hope you enjoyed it. And I sure hope you go to yrchat.com to vote in the poll. Leave me some comments. See all the stuff that's there. I love interacting with you there. I've been trying to do my best to check in there way more recently. A lot of times it's just like I'm doing quick looks and uploading a bunch of photos. Quick looks and photo uploading and captions and all that stuff. It's fast and on the fly for me a whole lot here right now and lately. I mean, the classic episodes have taken way more work than the newer episodes, and I feel like obligated to screen cap every cap that everybody screens. So there's a lot there. If you haven't gone to the website, please do. And please come back next week so we can chat about summer fun. I hope you guys are out there having some summer fun. I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday.